The Continental Flying Spur, Bentley's brand new do-it-all car. It's said to be a pleasure to drive with that W12 engine. Its new chassis comes on the Porsche Panamera or the MSB platform, and it's even more comfortable in the back, according to Bentley. We have the car with us for the day in and around the streets of Monaco and the surrounding hills. Let's see what it's like. The first thing I pay attention to is the ride. This is a limo after all. Now, set in comfort, the ride is nice and supple. This car now gets 3-chamber air springs, and this allows the Bentley engineers to really tune it to be soft and pliant, and as is the case, extremely silent. It really does ride like a limousine that it's supposed to be, and comfort levels as a result are super. At higher speeds there is a bit of float, but unfortunately you can't cancel that out by selecting normal. There's just comfort and sport, and the gap between the two is pretty wide. It's also as silent as a grave on the inside. Now, the Flying Spur primarily is a luxury car, and it fulfills that brief beautifully. Feels just effortless to drive. The motor is near silent till around 4,500 or 5,000 RPM, and the cabin insulation is really right up there with the best. But all things considered, this is an extremely quiet and hushed environment, and that's just perfect. This is due to the fact that for the most part, the engine is running just off idle. Now this is just incredible. The car is sitting at around 80 kilometers an hour in top gear, and the engine is turning over at just above 1000 RPM. It's pretty incredible, but that's what 6 liters and turbochargers give you, the ability to cruise effortlessly at an extremely low engine speed. This is just insane. The new Flying Spur also, well, can fly. If you want to unleash the beast under the bonnet and release that 635 horsepower and the 900 Nm of torque, it's best to do it in sport, because when you plant your foot, this happens. It just reels in the horizon, this W12 engine. Power flows seamlessly, there's just no let up. And for a 6-liter engine of this size, it just loves to rev. And what's even nicer is that when you go to just half throttle, the pace is just searing. Now, throttle responses are a bit too jerky at times, especially in sport, and that makes it a bit difficult to drive smoothly. But get around that problem, and the new Flying Spur is an absolute peach to drive. The other reason why you need to select sport, on especially these long, tight corners, is that it balances up the chassis beautifully. The rear wheel steering gets in on the act, it points the car better into corners, and what it does is deliver a sporty drive that, well, is frankly slightly baffling. Even nicer and better balanced than the Continental, the sports car, the 2-door that Bentley makes. The new Flying Spur looks the part too. The battleship-like dimensions at 5.3 meters long and 2.2 meters wide are imposing. The even wider and more imposing grille up front gives it great presence. The round crystalline LED lamps add sparkle, and that bluff nose gives it the presence of a prize fighter. And what makes it look more hunkered down is the fact that it gets a tight-fitting roof and muscular haunches. And what adds to the imposing look is that tabletop-like boot lid, with its crisply defined lines. On the inside, it's Buckingham Palace on wheels. When it comes to handcrafted interiors, Bentley are right up there with the best in the world. And this cabin is proof. The way the leather is put together, the stitching, the veneer and the wood, the kind of attention to detail. Look at this knurling inside these dials. And of course, the screen that flips, as on the Continental. You get your big touch screen if you need it, or you can go back to the more traditional dials. Either one is super. Sportier steering wheel this time around, a smaller center boss, lots of chrome all over the place, some incredibly high quality stuff. These vents, they replaced the circular vents on the earlier car, and though a lot of stuff has shifted to the touchscreen, there still is a lot of switches here, things that control the seat. But oddly enough, the fan control needs 2 touches, and that can get a bit irritating when you're on the road. You got to find the switch and then control the fan speed, and that's not nice. But stuff like this 3D textured leather, the way the wood blends with the chrome, just brilliant, and it feels rich and absolutely brilliant. So in the back, now this is where most customers will sit during the day when they're using this car, and you get your recline function for the seat. You get a new tablet here. It's moved from here to this, and though you can't really tell, you can eject it. There it comes out nice and neat. And a whole host of functions here: media, climate, seats, blinds, lighting, car, and this new one, the Flying Bee. You hit that and you can conceal the Flying Bee up front, the logo that sinks down into the bonnet. So I'm saying conceal, and yeah, it's gone down. That's for when you're parking the car and you don't want someone to mess with that expensive piece you got up there. So pretty neat. Expected in India around the middle of next year at a base price of around 4.06 crore, the new Flying Spur is right up there amongst the best cars in the world. Yes, slightly more legroom in the back would have helped. The brakes need a bit more bite, and for India you will have to go to a smaller size wheel. But the new Flying Spur remains a super luxury car that can do both, keep its passengers incredibly comfortable in the rear, and be an absolute delight from behind the wheel. And let's be clear, very, very few cars can actually do that. This clearly is one of the best Bentleys ever.